The Denver Broncos continue to be majorly disrespected by all the national media outlets, and it's making me furious, but also kind of smile like I think we all know something. We all sense something. We feel something here that the national media just is not picking up on. We're going to dive into that and a lot more in this video. If you're new to this channel, my name is Ben. If you think the Denver Broncos are on the upswing, that we've hit rock bottom, we're bouncing up fast, it helps me out a ton if you would like and subscribe. So Mike Clay, who is a major league NFL analyst for ESPN, came out and dropped his 60-some page PDF where he does a deep dive on every team and makes these sweeping predictions about what he thinks is going to happen, how he thinks stats are playing out at different positions, and then what the total win is for each team. And there's some stuff in here that just made me laugh at first. Then I was like angry, and then I was like, am I taking crazy pills? Am I in the Matrix? Is this a simulation? And I don't even know what is happening, but I just cannot believe the disrespect that I'm seeing here with just some crazy predictions here from Mike Clay. We're going to break it down and then show, maybe let's start with this. So he is wrong on his predictions all the time, and I don't think people screenshot it enough and remind him of how wrong it is, but I just went back to even last year and looked at his predictions for the Houston Texans, and he had them on the right side here. He goes through and breaks down a game-by-game prediction, and you can see that their win percentage in all of these games was very, very low, and really, as a win total, only had them winning 3 games here. He says his overall win projections for the Texans last year was 6.5. We know they won 10 games and made the playoffs. He thought C.J. Stroud would throw for 3,000-something yards. He threw for well over 1,000 more than that. He had C.J. Stroud throwing for 17 touchdowns and 14 interceptions. He threw for 23 touchdowns to 5 interceptions, so he's way off there. And then everything on here, way, way off. You go down to multiple things on here that you're just like, what is this guy even talking about? The one that also really jumped out to me was predicting the Chargers to be good, and they weren't. Having the Chargers beat us twice last year, which they didn't. They lost to us both times. But then the one that was most blatantly off was his prediction of the Rams, who he had the Rams only winning 5 games, and we know that if it wasn't for a tough playoff schedule and having to go to Detroit and having favorable whistles for the Detroit Lions, the Rams could have made the NFC Championship game, right? And had way over that 4.9 wins. And so what I think is that the Denver Broncos are situated to kind of be a combo of the Rams, in that we also have a genius as a head coach in Shawn Payton, and we feel like homers when we give him his flowers, but there are so many Major League NFL people who say that Shawn Payton is the second best offensive coach in the entire NFL, only to Andy Reid. We saw Dick Vermeil say that. Everyone says that, even outside of our Broncos echo chamber. We have a great coach. This guy is wrong all the time. So let's dive into some of the things that are just comically wrong about the Broncos. So the first thing is that each week of the season, he goes through and says your percent, or what he predicts will be the score of the Broncos and the score of our opponent. And you'll notice that none of these predictions does he have the Denver Broncos winning over our opponent. So he doesn't say that we're going to go 0-18, 0-17 with a bye week, but he says we're going to only win 5 games. And you look at some of these, and he has us getting blown out by the Jets, just some things on here that just do not make sense. And so then you jump into some of his individual predictions here that just seem crazy off to me. So I think the first one is he's predicting Jarrett Stidham to get the first 3 games for the Denver Broncos. And I think it's more probable than not. Jarrett Stidham might not even be on our team when the season kicks off. There are a couple articles today about how they think the best move for the Denver Broncos would be hey, it's either Bo Nix or it's Zach Wilson, but we would save some cap money and just reduce the drama in that room by moving on from Jarrett Stidham. So I do not think Jarrett Stidham will be the starter week number 1, 2, or 3. I think it's way more likely than not that Bo Nix starts. So that's crazy. Next thing on here that is just blatantly off, he has Bo Nix having 37 sacks this year. And what's crazy about that is Bo Nix only had 5 sacks his entire career at Oregon. And so I just find it very hard to believe that he's going to get sacked 4 times a game or something like that when he barely got sacked 5 times at Oregon. That's something I saw a lot of people on Twitter, Sayer Bettinger from Locked On Broncos pointed that out as well. Like, there's just no way that is right. And then there's just some factual things on here that you can just tell. He throws this into a computer, and this is done by ChatGPT, not a real person, because look in here, he has Lucas Krull getting 11 targets for 7 receptions. So we know Lucas Krull had more targets and more receptions and more touchdowns than he predicts. In just the final 7 games that he played getting called off of the street, he had more targets, receptions, and touchdowns than this guy predicts all year. So I think that's blatantly off. You've heard some people who are actually at OTAs who predict that Lucas Krull will be our starting tight end, even if Greg Dulcich is 100% healthy. That Shawn Payton came out and said, hey, no one knows the number 85, but you're going to know it pretty soon. And I think right there, that's just showing this guy does not know what he's talking about, that he has Lucas Krull only getting 11 targets all season. That's insane. Other things on here that I just thought were way, way off is just some players on here that we're missing. So he breaks down our cornerback room, having Surtain as CB1. Obviously, that's true. Levi Wallace, 2. Jaquan McMillian, 3. Damari Mathis, and then Chris Abrams-Drain. He doesn't have Riley Moss anywhere on there. We saw George Payton at his end of the year press conference last year say that he believes Riley Moss is a starter in this league, and to have him not even on this list as a player who's going to be starting, I think, or getting any reps at corner, I think is really off. Like, Levi Wallace might step up and be a baller, but I think Riley Moss is going to make a difference this year on this team, and to have him off here is crazy. How he lines up our linebacker room, I think, is also off. He has Cody Barton, the free agent we picked up from Seattle most recently, getting the other nod next to Alex Singleton. But the thing everyone's sleeping on is Jonas Griffith was the first move we made of this entire NFL offseason, was re-signing him. I remember I was out in Florida and I saw that come across. I'm like, let's go. He was the guy who was homeschooled, didn't start playing football till he was a junior in high school. Just a really eclectic guy. And he actually was going to be the starter next to Josie Jewell, and then ended up having those injuries. So if Jonas Griffith can stay healthy, he is going to be the inside linebacker number 2 without a doubt. Sorry, middle linebacker number 2 without a doubt. And I think him and Singleton are just going to ball out of control. So those are the ones to me. And the other thing was just like the lack of respect for our offensive line that you see just in a number of ways here, whether it's looking at the projected running totals for the year. I just think there's no way that, Javonte Williams only has 700 yards and McLaughlin has 400, Samaje Perine 200, and then it has Audric Estime getting 46 yards all season long. There are people saying that Audric Estime is going to be our running back 1. Shawn Payton talked about the running back room is going to be the one of the rooms that has the most competition this year. So I think there is no way that our rushing totals are that low, and there's no way that we have anywhere near the sack totals we have last year. I think what he ended up doing in this model was basically just taking the offense with Russell Wilson and then just subbing in other people. But what we know is that we have deeply upgraded this roster at every meaningful place that you can think of. And the only question mark is truly, what is Alex Forsyth going to look like as our center? We lost Cushenberry, and that could be a huge loss. Or as I've hoped for, I think that Cushenberry wasn't good until he was surrounded by 2 awesome guards. And so I think Forsyth is going to step in there, have the chemistry with Bo Nix, being at Oregon with him. And I don't think our offensive line is going to take the dip that he's predicting it to. PFF has our offensive line as the 11th ranked offensive line in all of football. So there's no way that you give up those kind of sacks and don't even have a 1,000-yard rusher on this squad. So I think that is just a major league sleeper. So really the thing that is the rock in my shoe is this 5.1 win prediction from him. I just have not had a single person give me a convincing argument how the Denver Broncos have gotten worse from last year. I think we have upgraded in every single position. We go from we lose Justin Simmons and then go out and get people who are just as talented for a fraction of the price as him. We lost Josie Jewell, and I told you I think Griffith is going to step in and fill those shoes. And if not, Cody Barton is a tackling machine. And then we got an entire backup offensive line with all of the guys who we went and got in Throckmorton, in Mustafa, all of those where if we have some injury on the offensive line, we have people who can step up. We get Tim Patrick back. Mims is stepping in for Jerry Jeudy, and then Josh Reynolds, who's less of a diva in the locker room. And, we have quarterbacks now who are going to run the system that Shawn Payton wants it run. He talked about he only put the guardrails on this offense last year, and now those guardrails are off, and we're able to run the entire Shawn Payton offense. And I think we are going to look back at this a year from right now. I put a calendar reminder in my calendar to remind me to come back and look at this next year at this time so that we can all laugh and tweet at Mike Clay like, man, don't be sleeping on these Denver Broncos, because right here at Sports Talk Denver, we believe.